The relatively safe $12 trillion inside of American retirement accounts could potentially get a lot riskier very soon. And that's because the Trump administration is preparing an executive order that would open up 401k plans, which are America's largest employer-based retirement savings accounts, to private equity investments. You know, those financial geniuses who brought you the bankruptcies of Toys R Us, Red Lobster, and so many other Main Street mainstays in the US. Now they want to work their magic at your life savings. So, what could possibly go wrong? My name is Lewis, and this is the story of how private equity could potentially gamble away your golden years. First things first though, you need to know that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just educational content intended to inform you about private equity. And if you want to see more videos like this, then tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell so that you don't miss the next one. Now, on to private equity. Think of it as vulture capitalism with a Harvard MBA. These are the firms that turned corporate buyouts into a blood sport. They buy entire companies using mostly borrowed money, strip them for parts, and try to flip them for a profit. It's like house flipping, except the house has tens of thousands of employees, and the flippers are charging the house rent while they renovate it. Here's the basic playbook. A private equity or PE firm spots a company with stable cash flows. Maybe a retail chain, maybe a hospital network, or your local newspaper. They put down 20 to 40% in cash, borrow the rest at eye-watering interest rates, then force that debt onto the company that they just bought. The beautiful part is that the debt doesn't go on the PE firm's books. It goes on the books of the target company. Imagine buying a house by putting down 20%, borrowing 80%, and then making the house pay its own mortgage while you charge it maintenance fees. Oh, and while the house struggles to make payments, you're also extracting additional fees for quote-unquote value creation and strategic guidance. That is private equity. Actually, nice work if you could get in it. The fee structure is where things really get interesting though. PE firms typically charge 2 and 20. That's 2% of all assets annually, plus 20% of any profits above a set rate. On $1 billion fund, that's $20 million a year just for showing up, before they make a dime for investors. For a successful fund, total compensation can exceed $500 million over the fund's life. So surely private equity must be creating value somewhere, right? Well, let's ask the 33,000 former employees of Toys R Us just how that worked out. The Toys R Us saga is private equity's greatest hits album. If, of course, your favorite songs are about destroying childhood memories and mass unemployment. You see, in 2005, KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado bought the toy retailer for $6.6 billion, putting up $1.6 billion and loading the company with over $5 billion in debt. From day one, Toys R Us was drowning, paying $400 to $517 million annually just in interest, money that could have gone to competing with Amazon or updating stores. The PE firms extracted $464 million in fees while the company bled cash. By 2018, the inevitable happened. Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy, closing over 800 stores and eliminating 33,000 jobs. That is a heck of a lot of jobs, so the human cost was predictably devastating. Parents trying to pay mortgages, kids' college funds evaporating, entire communities losing their economic anchors. But hey, at least KKR made their fees. Red Lobster's story is more recent, but equally instructive. Golden Gate Capital bought the seafood chain in 2014 for $2.1 billion and immediately sold off its real estate for $1.5 billion. Nearly recovering their entire purchase price. Suddenly, Red Lobster went from owning its restaurants to paying $200 million yearly in rent. The company limped along until Thai Union Group, which was both owner and seafood supplier, took control. Talk about conflicts of interest. By May 2024, Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy after bleeding cash on ultimate endless shrimp promotions designed to boost Thai Union's sales rather than Red Lobster's profits. And these aren't isolated incidents. Private equity owns just 6.5% of the US economy, but accounts for 56% of the largest bankruptcies. PE-backed companies are 10 times more likely to go bankrupt than non-PE companies. Though it's worth noting this statistic was even more pronounced before the 2008 financial crisis. In 2024 alone, we saw 110 PE bankruptcies, a new record. From Payless Shoes, which by the way filed for bankruptcy twice, to Radio Shack, Sports Authority to Sears, the pattern repeats: excessive debt, fee extraction, asset stripping, bankruptcy. It's not a bug in the system, it's the feature. Private equity is sitting on a powder keg of its own making. They've got $2.62 trillion in dry powder, undeployed capital demanding to be invested. That's more than Italy's entire GDP just sitting there, creating enormous pressure to overpay for acquisitions. Problem is that they can't find anything to buy at reasonable prices. European buyout multiples just hit a record 12.1 times EBITDA in 2024, while North American multiples jumped to 11.9x. In human speak, PE firms are paying 12 years worth of profits up front to buy companies. It's like paying $1.2 million for a rental property that brings you in $100,000 a year. You'd need 12 years just to break even, assuming nothing goes wrong. Meanwhile, fundraising has collapsed spectacularly. PE fundraising dropped 24% in 2024, representing the weakest environment since the pandemic. The average fund now takes a record 21.9 months to raise money, compared to under 12 months just 5 years ago. Limited partners, which are the pension funds and endowments that feed the PE beast, are experiencing severe LP fatigue as they wait for returns from previous investments. And returns are also in the toilet. PE delivered just 3.8% returns in 2024 versus their 14.5% historical average and trailing public markets for the third consecutive year. Some academics calculate that after adjusting for leverage and fees, PE has actually underperformed the S&P 500 index over the past decade. The traditional PE pitch, superior returns justifying higher fees, is a thing of the past. Meanwhile, a massive exit backlog has formed. PE firms are sitting on 28,000 unsold companies worth $3.2 trillion globally, with average holding periods stretching well beyond the traditional 3 to 5 years. They can't sell because nobody wants to buy at these inflated prices. So, what do desperate PE firms do when they can't sell? Crafty financial engineering, of course. They make portfolio companies borrow more money to pay dividends back to PE owners, a practice called dividend recapitalization. Academic research into this practice suggests that it significantly increases bankruptcy risks, but hey, at least the PE partners are getting paid. So we're watching an entire industry postpone a reckoning that's been building for years. The music isn't slowing down, and there aren't enough chairs for everyone. But don't worry, they've found a solution: your 401k. Let's just zoom out and examine the systemic risk that we're actually dealing with here. Private equity alone manage $8.2 trillion, while the broader private capital markets have reached $14.7 trillion in assets. This parallel financial system operates with minimal transparency and oversight while maintaining deep connections to traditional banks. Federal Reserve researchers are sweating bullets. Large banks' loan commitments to PE and private credit funds exploded from $10 billion in 2013 to $300 billion by 2023, a 30-fold increase in just one decade. Every major business development company borrows from large banks, creating a web of interconnections that would make 2008 look like a rehearsal. Financial regulators increasingly warn about these underappreciated sources of systemic risk. And when central banks are worried about financial engineering, you know that things are getting spicy. Academic research reveals troubling impacts beyond financial metrics. PE ownership accelerates both job creation and destruction, typically resulting in net employment losses, while wages for displaced workers fall significantly. The bankruptcy statistics speak for themselves. with PE-backed companies making up a disproportionate share of corporate failures, particularly among larger firms. But the real wealth extraction happens through the tax code. The carried interest loophole, which treats performance bonuses as investment gains instead of regular salary, allows PE executives to pay just 20% capital gains tax instead of 37% ordinary income tax on their compensation. This is one of the major state subsidies enjoyed by the ultra-wealthy like Stephen Schwarzman of Blackstone, who saved $93 million in taxes from 2019 to 2023 through this one loophole that would make your accountant weep. In 2024, the same year that PE-backed companies were responsible for 65,850 layoffs across the country, PE executives were collecting massive bonuses taxed at rates lower than what their secretaries pay. It's the good old upward wealth redistribution, showing that the system is working exactly as intended. Now, the lobbying muscle behind these arrangements is formidable. Private equity and investment firm industry spent $20.2 million on federal lobbying in 2023, according to Open Secrets data. They've got revolving doors spinning so fast between government and industry that they could probably power a Bitcoin miner or two. And the concentration of power is impressive too. Just 5 firms, Blackstone, KKR, Apollo, Carlyle, and Ares, control over $3.1 trillion in assets. That's more than the GDP of Canada. These firms have their tentacles in everything from your apartment building to your local hospital to your kids' daycare. They are the invisible landlords of American life, sucking rent from every vein, artery, and capillary of the economy. And this is the industry that's about to get access to your retirement saving. Enter Trump's Masterplan, opening 401k accounts to private equity. For those outside the US, 401ks are employer-sponsored retirement accounts where Americans save for the golden years. Think of them as your country's pension scheme or superannuation fund. We're talking $12.5 trillion in retirement assets, covering 150 million Americans. The holy grail for an industry desperate for fresh capital. Multiple sources, including Bloomberg, Wealth Management, and PitchBook, confirm that Trump administration is finalizing an executive order to dramatically expand PE access to 401k plans. The industry has been salivating over this possibility for years, and now their moment has arrived. The push is being led by Daniel Aronowitz, Trump's nominee to head the Labor Department's Employee Benefit Security Administration, who's been evangelizing PE and 401ks through his blog like it's a religion. And major firms are already positioning products. Apollo partnered with State Street on a target date fund allowing 10% private market allocation, while BlackRock plans a 2026 fund with up to 20% in private assets. Now, the industry's pitch sounds reasonable if you don't think too hard. They cite historical outperformance, which is true if you ignore the last decade, diversification benefits, sure, if you consider illiquidity a feature, and fairness. I mean, if sophisticated pension funds access PE, why not regular workers? They point to the shrinking number of public companies and argue that excluding PE means missing 87% of large US companies. And yet, the counter-arguments are stronger. Here is why this is a terrible idea. First is liquidity. You could sell your crypto or the S&P 500 fund today and have cash tomorrow. PE investments can be locked up for up to 7 years or even more. What happens when you retire and your money's trapped in some leveraged buyout of Nebraska dental clinics? While the S&P 500 could be sold instantly, PE investments conflict fundamentally with retirees' need to access funds. Then there's the fee massacre. PE fees often exceed 7% annually when you add up all of the different layers: management fees, carried interest, fund-of-fund fees, administrative costs. Compare that to 0.03% for a Vanguard index fund, and over 30 years, those fees will devour more than half of your returns. For regular investors, this fee structure would be absolutely devastating. The valuation problem is even worse though. Public stocks have prices that you could check every second. PE valuations? They're basically made up quarterly by fund managers themselves. Valuation opacity means workers wouldn't know what their retirement accounts are actually worth until years later when firms try to sell. It's Schrodinger's 401k, simultaneously worth a lot and also nothing at the same exact time until you open the box. Johns Hopkins researchers studied this extensively and concluded that PE is unfit for 401k plans due to excessive risk and opacity. Consumer advocacy groups are up in arms. Even some regulators warn that this would be destructive for retirement security. And this isn't Trump's first rodeo. In June 2020, the Labor Department under the first Trump administration issued guidance making it easier for PE to enter the 401ks. The Biden administration did end up putting the brakes on this, issuing supplemental guidance emphasizing extreme caution and additional fiduciary considerations. Now Trump's back, and so is the plan. And while this is happening in America, don't think that you're safe elsewhere. Private equity is a global industry, and what happens to the US retirement savings today could be coming to your country's pension system tomorrow. Most critically, PE's recent underperformance suggests retail investors would be buying at the worst possible time. The industry is showing clear bubble characteristics, record capital with nowhere to go, institutional investors demanding their money back, and returns that no longer justify the fees. The executive order will most likely frame this as democratizing investment opportunities. Like the subprime mortgages democratized homeownership in 2006. We all know how that movie ended. Well, the parallel is hard to ignore. Complex, high-fee products being marketed to retail investors precisely when the whales are looking for an exit. So, an industry built on financial engineering and leverage is facing its biggest crisis since the 1980s. They've got too much money they can't invest, too many companies they can't sell, and returns that don't justify their existence. Their solution? Tap into the retirement savings of 150 million Americans who have no idea what they're buying. The warning signs are everywhere. Record dry powder, plunging fundraising, an exit backlog that would make the Suez Canal blush, and returns that can't beat a basic index fund. This is an industry in the late stages of a bubble, and they want your 401ks to be the greater fool. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Every financial crisis follows the same pattern. A profitable industry faces diminishing returns, regulations get loosened to find new capital sources, complex products get sold to retail investors who don't understand them, and then, boom, explosion. We saw it with mortgage-backed securities in 2008, junk bonds in the 1980s, and hell, even tulips in 1637. The only difference now is that instead of your house or your flower garden, it's your retirement on the line. And unlike those previous bubbles, this one comes with a 7-year lockup period. When mortgage-backed securities collapsed, at least you could sell and cut your losses. With PE in your 401ks, you'll be trapped watching your retirement evaporate in slow motion. Private equity has already hollowed out American retail, media, healthcare, and manufacturing. They've perfected financial strip mining, leaving bankruptcy and unemployment in their wake while walking away with millions in fees. Now they're coming for the last pot of money that they haven't touched, your retirement. The timing couldn't be worse. We're potentially at the peak of a massive PE bubble, with valuations stretched, returns compressed, and an entire industry desperate for exits. Opening 401ks now would be like offering swimming lessons on the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. The executive order opening 401ks to private equity might provide temporary relief to an industry drowning in its own excess, but when this bubble pops, it won't be PE partners feeling the pain. It'll be the millions of Americans wondering why their retirement account suddenly took a 30% haircut and got locked up in the pen for another 5 years. Workers' retirement security would be tied to an asset class showing clear bubble characteristics, managed by firms with a demonstrated history of extracting value rather than creating it. And if you think that this is just an American problem, think again. These same PE firms operate globally, and they're eyeing pension systems worldwide. I mean, it's not every day that we find ourselves agreeing with Senator Elizabeth Warren, but she had a point when she wrote in 2019, quote, "Let's call this for what it is, legalized looting. Looting that makes a handful of Wall Street managers very rich while costing thousands of people their jobs, putting valuable companies out of business, and hurting communities across the country. The desperation of the PE industry is palpable. When Obama proposed closing the carried interest loophole in 2010, Steven Schwarzman compared it to, quote, when Hitler invaded Poland in 1939. He later apologized for the analogy, but the mindset remains. When banker Leo Hindery Jr. was set to testify before Congress in 2007 about closing the loophole, Schwarzman called him the night before. Hindery later recalled, quote, his opening sentence was, "You're a traitor." When Hindery suggested that Schwarzman would still be worth $4 billion instead of $6 billion, Schwarzman threatened to quit the business entirely instead of just paying his fair share. The question isn't whether PE faces a reckoning. The signs are crystal clear. The question is whether America's retirees will be forced to foot the bill. And if they succeed in cracking open American retirement accounts, your country's pension system could be next. You have been warned. Now, well, isn't that a cheerful thought to end on? If you enjoyed learning about how Wall Street wants to gamble with your retirement, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more tales of financial engineering gone wrong. And if you want to watch more and go even deeper into this rabbit hole, then why not check out our video about the crisis in consumer debt right over there. I'll leave it there for now, folks. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. This is Lewis, over and out.